Good morning.
Yeah, I know.
So excited to see you all here. Here we are again, the first Thursday after Labor Day. Seems like we were just here, right? Thank you so much for once again coming to the Women's Fun Luncheon this year, and specifically the Issue Spotlight. We're thrilled to have our theme of Women's Firsts throughout our time together today. And thank you so much for our three lovely panelists who are here, as well as Haley Tenpas from for Focus Fox Valley on WBHY. And we will let her do our introductions today and moderate our panel. And again, thank you all. Excited you're here. Thank you also for taking the time out. I know we're all busy women and we're asking you to do something else, but hopefully this is a few hours just for you. So enjoy today. Thank you so much for being here, and we'll see you all upstairs.
Yes. Well, good morning, everyone. Oh, what a great group we have here today. I'm Haley Tenpas. I am the host of Focus Fox Valley on WHBY Radio, weekdays from 11 to 1. Not hosting the show here today, obviously. A best of Focus Fox Valley will be airing. But so thrilled to be here, so thrilled to be back and welcomed back. Last year, hosting this panel, I was actually about 8 weeks pregnant and I was so sick. So I'm happy to report I'm back and feeling great this year, and I have a beautiful 5-month-old baby girl at home. My first this week, though, was dropping my oldest off at kindergarten. Who can relate? Oh my goodness! So a lot of big things happening. But bigger are the three women you see in front of you today, and I know that each and every one of you are going to find some inspiration, some type of connection with these incredible ladies. So I love this focus for today, which is women's first. So let's introduce our panel. First, Dr. Pam Herr, the former executive leader that has worked in corporate, government, and nonprofit. And we are so happy to have her here today in her leadership. Welcome, Dr. Herr.
Thank you.
Also, Appleton Police Chief Polly Olson, employed with the Appleton Police Department for more than 20 years, overseeing an agency with 114 sworn officers and 27 civilian employees. Welcome, Chief Olson. And also Judge Yadira Rein, first person of color, specifically the first Latina to serve as judge in the 8th Judicial District of Wisconsin. Welcome, Judge Rein. All right, so a little introduction for them, but I would love actually to have them share a little bit of who they are and why they're happy to be here today. So Dr. Herr, I'll start with you, and we'll go down the line. Just a quick introduction from your own words.
Okay, can you hear me? No? Okay, can you hear me now? All right. No one's ever said they couldn't hear me, so I will try to keep it down as I have the mic. So good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be with all of you. I wanted to do a shout out to the Community Foundation, to Haley, as well as the Women's Fund for giving us this opportunity to share this morning. I am Dr. Pam Herr. I am a business owner. I am an educator. I do grassroots organizing. I'm a community advocate, but most importantly, I'm a wife and a mom. So I'm thrilled to be with you this morning. I currently own Fortune Business Solutions, and what I do is I help organizations go through their cultural competency journeys to create a lived inclusion culture. And so I do that day in, day out, every day of my life, and it's my passion. It's what I love the most. And I've also been blessed in this life to have leadership roles, both in corporate, nonprofit, and in government sectors. And most importantly, in 1997, I helped create and became the first DEI coordinator for the city of Appleton. And at that time, it was called the Intercultural Relations Coordinator. And that was a profound impact on my life, and I'll share a little bit later in regards to that. But that gave me an opportunity to embark on a journey that has forever changed my life and hopefully changed all that I've come into contact with. So I am thrilled to be here. I'm humbled to be here with all of you, and I look forward to being here with these wonderful panelists to share our stories. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, and I concur with Dr. Herr. It is definitely an honor and a privilege to be able to sit on this panel this morning. I have a lot of passion for what we do as women in this community. The Women's Fund is something that I'm a huge supporter of and was just honored with a position on the board of directors actually last month. So a very exciting time, and to be able to be on this panel today at this luncheon is great. So just a few additional things about me. I agree. I think my biggest accomplishment so far in the 51 years I've been here is wife and mom. I've been married for 28 years to my husband, Jay, and I have 2 adult kids, a 26-year-old son and a 23-year-old daughter, who are both forging their way in life and finding success in what they're doing, which is, I think, my greatest success. I was born and raised in the Fox Cities and in Appleton. Attended actually Catholic grade school, St. Bernadette, which is now since navigated into a whole different system with Xavier. But then went into the public school system and ended up graduating high school from Appleton East High School. And then got my bachelor's degree from UW-Oshkosh with a Bachelor's of Science in Biology. So you're wondering, how did I end up here in policing with a degree in biology? And that is a story for another time. But I think the whole point and what drives me today is that when I was in high school, law enforcement was not something that was presented as an opportunity for young women. And it was either be a nurse or be a teacher, but be a police officer was not really something that was ever introduced to me or made as an option. So it wasn't until I got through college, graduated, actually had my kids before I was introduced into the possibilities of being a police officer. So, and maybe we can dive into that a little bit more as the day goes on. But today, it's my passion to be able to show that women can be successful in this career. It's a very rewarding career, and my hope is that young women look to me and look to other women in our department as role models and seek out a career in public safety.
Move it closer. Well, these women are just amazing, and I really wish that I would have gone first. I do want to thank Haley for having us and everybody here at the Women's Fund. I love this program, and you'll learn a little bit about me, and you're going to hear more about my fellow panelists. But I know, in just being in a room like this, filled with all of you women, and I know that upstairs it's going to, double. And that feeling is just incredible, because although I am the first Latina judge and I have a story, I know that in each and every one of you, there is a story and there's a struggle. And there isn't, being a first, I'm a first judge, that's a big thing, and I'm so proud of it. But I always tell people it doesn't have to be that big. You can be first first person to graduate high school, first person to acknowledge that there's a mental health issue, for example, first person who is not going to do drugs in your home. And I really value that, and I think that's one of the most important things for me, being first, is knowing how scary it is and how much of a risk it was, and how it's just a lot easier not to be first. And a lot of times you don't ask to be first. You are just put into that position, and you really can't say no, and it's a huge risk. And I try to say that when I'm on the bench, and at least I know how that feels to be the first, and it's going to be okay. So I just wanted to thank all of you guys here for being here today. Being first, as I said, it's not something that I asked to be. I actually never thought I could be first. I didn't. Growing up in Mexico, and then when I came here at 10 years old, I never saw women that looked like me in any sort of leadership role. You just didn't. So when I grew up in Mexico with my grandparents, and when I came here, my biggest goal at that time was just graduating high school and trying to learn English and trying to figure that out, living in 2 different cultures and not understanding the language and not really having anybody again, that looked like me in a school that there wasn't any Latinos where I grew up in Neenah. I went to school in Larson, Clayton Elementary. So at that time, there wasn't anybody. I don't know if there is today, but there isn't. And you'll hear a little bit more about that. But for me, it was, just having a counselor who said to me when it was time for me to go to college, and he said, you are not college material. And I think that being a first, you always get a little bit of that. There's always people that have doubted every single time I've been a first, when I go every path in my life, whether it's graduating high school, getting into a good college, getting into law school, then my first firm job, and now this judge role. There's always going to be people that doubted, people that look at me and think, really? But, it's just that little extra pressure, but we'll talk about that, and we hope to share more. But anyways, I just wanted to thank all of you guys for being here today and listening to what we have to say.
All right, thank you. Well, let's expand on that a bit. You really you teed us up for a great first question, which is, what does first mean to you? And I'm going to turn to Dr. Herr on this one. So what does being first mean to you?
Well, I think when we think about first, right, we always think about striving for that opportunity to maybe be the first to do certain things. But what I've learned in my life and the opportunities that I've received is sometimes being first is not a choice. As Judge Yadira was talking about, that it's not a choice. And for me, in that role as the Intercultural Relations Coordinator, if you know the history behind that, it was in 1997. We had a brand new, semi-brand new mayor, Mayor Hanna. People always ask me, how old are you? Because he was in his second year of mayorship at that point. We had a brand new police chief here. We had a brand new superintendent of schools, and we had a lot of difficulty, crisis, challenges within our community. And as we looked around and we looked at opportunities that existed for communication and for building trusting relationships, the new leadership that came into this city realized that we had to do so much more than just having conversation with people. We had to take action, but we didn't know exactly what actions we need to take. And so with that thought in mind, and with the focus on building strong relationships, they began to talk to different individuals, and they came upon me because someone recommended that they should call me. And at that time, I was doing a lot of community organizing around needs and barriers and things like that. And when they approached me in this role, they asked me to help them create this. And I said, sure, I can help create this role. And as we were creating this role, we began to think about what is necessary, right, for this to happen, and the action pieces. And we finished that piece, and then we posted it out, and people started to interview. And as they were interviewing, we were looking through and looking at certain specific individuals and their personality and all of that. And I remember at the end of that interview, those interviews, I looked at them and said, so what do you think? And they said, well, we don't want any of these candidates. And I'm like, what? Oh, no. We have to go back and take a look at this. And, there's good candidates. And they're like, no, actually, we want you. I said, me? I said, no. I have a career in corporate that I'm working on, because my dream is to be a corporate leader someday. And so I'm like, I'm focused on that. And I was working for a local bank that was going to go international, right? And so I was very busy in that role, but this is what I did as a volunteer. And they said, no, we want you, because you know this, you know what it takes, and we know that you can do this. And I'm like, oh, no. I'll help you find the right person. No. So they said, think on it. And I said, no, I don't need to think on it. I'm good. Let's just keep looking. So I went home, and I said, let's all sleep on this and talk about this tomorrow morning, because we're all tired. And so I went home, and I was thinking through this, and I'm like, okay, no, they were just tired, and we're all doing this, but I'm going to find the right person. So the next day I go into work, and my boss, who is a staunch community advocate, and the CEO of the bank, says to me, come in, let's have a conversation. I'm like, what? Okay. So I walk in, and she goes, close the door. And I'm like, uh-oh, what's going on? And so she said, I got a call late last night. And I'm like, oh, a call, yes. And she looked at me and she said, our community needs you. And you need to go and do this. And your job will always be here. You will always have a position with me. But we need you, and we need you to do this for our community. And I said, okay, right? And then I stopped and I was going home and I called my dad and I said, Dad, you know, there's this role and I'm not really sure about this role and I don't really know and this is where I want to go. And he said something to me that profoundly changed me in that moment. He said, I know throughout your life you've always been in control and you like control and you want to be in control of the things that you want because you're my daughter and I know you so well. But he said to me, sometimes you don't choose your destiny, sometimes your destiny chooses you. And you need to be open to that, right? When your destiny calls, you have to be open. And I said, okay. So that's how I became the first intercultural relations coordinator for the city of Appleton. And so sometimes you don't think about being the first. It was not my goal to be the first, but I became the first. And it profoundly changed me because I began to look at cultural competency through a different lens, right? It was, if you need me to come in and teach you how to make egg rolls and understand the new year and understand all the different communities of color, you don't need me for that. But if you want me to create sustainable changes, to be able to shift lenses, to be able to shift from intent to impact, then I'm the person for you. But it's going to be a long journey, and it's going to be hard, and it's going to be challenging, and there are times where we're going to want to give up because it's like nobody cares, right? But if you want that, then I can do that, right? And so that began my journey in that role, and I'm happy to say that the role is still here, and that we still have a DEI coordinator that does wonderful work in the city to make us continue as an inclusive and welcoming city for everybody. In that role, you know, when I started in that role, I was the only in the whole state of Wisconsin. Not only was I the first in the city of Appleton, but in the state of Wisconsin, there was no diversity coordinator for any municipality in '97. And so it was very lonely. It was very lonely. I couldn't pick up the phone and say, hey, what's going on down there? What are some strategies you've used? What are some things that you can advise me on that you've learned from, right? It was just me, myself, and I. But I had a team of wonderful leaders who were very willing to shift, willing to do things out of the box, to move in a different direction, and to trust me, to truly trust me and believe that I am the person that could be able to do that, to start shifting us in that direction. So, you know, when I think about being the first, I think about how sometimes we don't think about being the first or position ourselves to be the first, but that when destiny calls, there's no way to run. Because I couldn't say no to my boss, then she'd be like, maybe I should think twice about hiring you then, right? And so you fall into those pieces, and then you get the opportunity to make a difference, to do something with it. So.
Amazing. I love that gratitude for growth, I think, in our community too. And I'm sure a lot of what you worked on in those nearly 30 years ago, it's still in place today, and we're still developing and growing on that too. Well, to maybe still stick to that first, I want to ask about maybe the emotions involved in being first. And Chief Olson, I want to turn to you because I think in law enforcement, there's a lot of stigma attached with being tough or strong. And I'm curious, which emotions do you feel in being first? Expand on that if you could.
Yeah, you're not wrong. You know, I really think, I look back to, like I mentioned, 25 years ago when this was just kind of a thought and an idea of maybe getting into law enforcement. And if you would have asked me 25 years ago if I had any desire or thought it would be possible to be chief at an agency someday, I would have laughed. For sure. I mean, that was just not something that was even anywhere close to being on the radar for me. As far as women police chiefs in the country, we comprise about 3% of the total police chiefs. Obviously, a very male-dominated type of role that we have. So to be able to achieve being selected as chief for this department, which in my opinion is the best department in the state of Wisconsin, for the best community, in the state of Wisconsin, is such an honor. I feel overwhelmed every day when I wake up and I get to come to work and I get to lead just the best men and women in the city. I think that we hire great people here. I take a lot of pride in the time and the energy we spend investing in our employees, and that's just something that for me, I have a lot of joy, as far as emotions. And there's a lot of fear that goes along, and I'm not going to pretend that there isn't anxiety every day I wake up as well. I'm in the business of dealing with crisis, right? And so every day you come into work and you're not quite sure what to expect. You're not sure what you might encounter, what you might have to manage. A lot of the issues I deal with can be both external and internal. And I embrace the challenge. I feel very honored that the trust was placed in me to make the decisions that are best for this community. And I just hold on to that.
Amazing. All right. Let's talk about authenticity. And I'm curious if any of you have ever struggled with what we call imposter syndrome a little bit. Anyone want to take that one? Go ahead.
If you look it up, my picture's there. As I said, that's something that I've always have struggled with, because as I mentioned earlier, in every stage of my life, I always felt part of just my own that, wow, I can't believe I'm here. Even right now, I can't believe I'm here. Because there's just people that doubt you, and I still let them sometimes doubt. In this role, as I said before, there's always people that are going to doubt your abilities. They are going to think that you got into the school, you got into that program, you got that job at a nice law firm, you got the judicial appointment, and they will think of every reason why you got that, except for, hey, maybe she worked her butt off to be there. And it's really difficult because you have to put that aside, but I would be lying to you if I said, yeah, I never think about that. It's a lie. I think about it all the time, and I feel like then I need to work extra. I need to be extra at everything. I need to make sure that I am there all the time, that I do a lot more work, just because I don't want to give anybody a reason to think, see, I told you. And also with being a first, there's a lot of responsibility, and I am so thankful that I have this opportunity, that a door was opened for me, and I am here and I walk through that door of opportunity. But the last thing I want to do is mess this up for the person behind me and have somebody shut that door that literally just cracked open and saying, well, see what happened? We let her in. Never mind. Shut the door. And then now the person behind me that's like me is going to have to start from the beginning. So there is that extra pressure as well, and extra emotion. So a lot of pressure.
Yeah. Hugs. Raise your hand. Who's felt that too? I mean, it's relatable. It's relatable. What does authenticity mean to you, Dr. Herr?
Well, I think authenticity is really understanding yourself deeply. As a refugee child growing up, we were one of the very first Hmong families that came to the United States. And although people told us we were the lucky ones because my father did work for the U.S. Military and did a lot of things, and so we were one of the very first families that flew out of Thailand. We didn't actually lived in the camps for a long time. But, coming here and trying to understand everything here, that authenticity has always been a struggle for me as I maneuver through two very different cultures. And in my role at the city at that time, trying to understand my role as a professional in the community and the changes that we needed to make, and also trying to balance being among women in a male-dominated culture, when I sat with my clan leaders, there was this struggle of, a woman sitting in front of us telling us what to do or what we should do. And so I had to really position myself in such a way. It wasn't my message, it was how I presented my message that was very important. And that authenticity really was very fluid for me, depending on the spaces that I was in. And I learned how to be myself, to be true to myself, because I honored my culture so very much. My father was very traditional, but yet he was non-traditional in many ways, raising a daughter and being very close to my dad. That was not a relationship. I thought everybody had that relationship with their dad in our culture, and no, my friends would tell me, like, you could talk to your dad? I'm like, yes, right? So he taught me early on about authenticity and how you stay true to who you are, but you may have to flex and be a little bit different in different spaces, because it's not, people don't see you through your lenses, they see you through their lenses. And their lenses have many things embedded in those lenses. And so you shouldn't take it personal because they see through their lenses. But you should be able to flex and to understand deeply that everything you're reflecting comes through your lens, everything they're reflecting comes through their lens. So authenticity for me has been finding a balance, but know where I came from, know my goals and objectives, know what I want to accomplish, and figure out how I'm going to deliver that, right? It's never about the message, it's about how you deliver it. And I've had to deliver many difficult messages in my life to different groups, whether it's corporate, whether it's government, whether it's community. In those stages, in those venues, I had to recraft my message. So authenticity to me has been a journey of who I am, but always knowing where I came from, what's important to me, but being able to be flexible as well too. Thank you.
Chief Olson, I'll ask you the same thing. What does authenticity mean to you?
I really love this question. And the reason I love this question is because one of the things that I like to share with not just the young ladies that get into a male-dominated field, but the men as well, because I think it's important for them to understand what it's like to be a minority. And for me, it was learning early on in my career that I didn't have to be somebody I wasn't. So there was a lot of time I feel like wasted the first probably 10, 12 years of my work life, where I thought I had to be great at everything. And this is a career where being a smaller statured person, male or female, sometimes doesn't always work to your advantage. Thankfully, policing has changed, and we've been given tools and other things to help us do our job more effectively, where size isn't something that necessarily needs to be a thing anymore like it was in the past. But when I got into this career, it was way before we had some of those tools available to us. And so our size and our presence was really what we had. And I thought, I had to be like the guys that I was working alongside with, because there really weren't any female role models for me to take a look at and sort of emulate in this position. And so now when I talk to young ladies who want to get into policing, or that want to move up in policing into leadership, and they doubt their abilities to be as good as the guys that they're comparing themselves to, I tell them to embrace their differences. We don't want all of the same types of individuals to comprise our police force. I mean, we want the diversity. We want people that can come in and be compassionate, that can connect to victims, that can be great communicators. And all of those skills and those tools can be used to make our police department, or whatever business, job that you have, the best that it can be. So tap into yourself and look internally and decide for yourself, or discover, what you're really good at, and then become a master of that. I think that'll serve you well in whatever it is that you choose to do.
Wonderful.
I could follow up on.
Please
on
go ahead.
that.
Yes.
I think that's such a great message, and I've had the privilege of working with Chief Olson on another project where it's the same message, and I think that it's always the same message, that you have to be yourself, and that is good enough, because other people other people saw that. And behind all of our firsts and anybody's first, I guarantee you that there's a team behind that who made you feel that you could be a first. And without that, I struggle to think that we would be here. For me, I had a group of people that said, look, you should do this. Our community needs you. And I said, how? Why? What do I have to offer? I'm an attorney. I do family law. I'm in my own little corner of the world. What business do I have being a judge? And they said, when you are up on that bench and you're looking down, you're looking at the people in front of you, when those people look up at the judges now, which I love our fellow judges, but they don't have the background you had. I took a completely different path, and they were all very fortunate to have lived really good lives. I didn't. I grew up in different homes. I went to the tech for a class, then the community college, then Madison, MATC, then Madison, then law school. I took a weird way. But I ended up at the same place they did. But I can look at people and say, look, I'm here. I almost didn't graduate high school. I dropped out of high school. I worked a lot. I went back to Mexico. I came back. I lived here. I lived there. And the problem is that none of that looks good on paper. So when I finally agreed to at least look at the judicial application, I started crying because I thought, I am so proud of how far I've come now, just, being an attorney. And now I have to fill out all of this stuff. I have no awards. On paper, I don't look very remarkable. And I remember the team of people I was working with, they said, that's the point. You have so many other things that you can offer that is not going to show up on paper. And I took a chance and I believed them. But I think it's important with the same that you don't have to be what you think, this stereotypical, and thank goodness you didn't listen to that and you did it. And I think that's such a good message that allow yourself to believe what other people see and through the lenses that your dad told you, because that's just so true, but it's really hard to do.
Yeah.
Thank goodness for the weird way. I love that. Think of how many different stops along the way, though, different individuals can connect with, right? It just widens and evens the playing field so much more. So I want to hear what you love about your jobs. I really do. What do you love about your job and in being first? What do you love about it? Chief Olson, I'll go to you first.
Well, if any of you follow me on LinkedIn, you would have seen that I just posted a little blurb. It was a photo that was on there. Fox Cities Magazine ran a story. Somebody had submitted a photo of one of our SWAT officers with a little girl, 4-year-old girl, and it's just the best photo. And the mom actually sent the photo into Fox Cities Magazine, and the comment on there was that her 4-year-old made the observation that why don't we have more girl or women police officers? And she sought out the SWAT demonstration that we had at our community event at Pierce Park back in May, and that's where this photo was taken. And so to answer your question, that's really what brings me joy. It brings me joy to be able to make those connections with the community, to see the impact that my staff and my officers have on those that they have contact with. It's bringing a sense of peace to this community, a sense of safety, and letting people be able to live and work and travel through this community and feel engaged and included. And I think that photo to me just resonated and spoke to me and really just kind of brought it all together that this is why I'm here today and that's what brings me joy in coming to work every day.
Dr. Herr.
Well, I can share with you that I'm living my passion, and I do it every day of my life. And what brings me tremendous joy are the people that I meet along this journey, people from all walks of life. I strive, and in my life, I've made it a priority that I learn from every person that I meet, learn something from them that I take away in my life to help understand, right, this journey that we're on together. And so I love leading people on journeys and just being a part of that journey to guide them. And the impact that we make, sometimes we don't know that. Sometimes we don't even realize that. I was the coordinator for a while, then I left. Went to do my corporate stint, so I did that. And then I came back and to this community because I had family here that needed us. And so we came back to Wisconsin to be with family, to take care of family. And I remember working one day and somebody came up to me and said, are you Pam? And I said, yes. And she's like, oh my goodness, you don't remember me? You probably don't know me at all. But I want you to know that I've been a teacher for a long time. And in '97, when you were the Intercultural Relations Coordinator, I went to a session that you did. And she said, and you profoundly changed my life in terms of how I deliver my curriculum every day of my life. And there's been thousands of students that have come through my classroom. And I want you to know that they have been touched, they have been profoundly changed because of you too. And so when I think about the opportunities we get to impact people's lives that we will never meet in this lifetime, we will never know. But because we planted a seed, because we did something, we made a choice that we impacted one person's life who now impacts hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of students' lives that we'll never meet, but their lives are different, their lives are better. They have something to contribute that's going to be impactful. That is what brings me joy, is that piece of it on how we can share that with other people and how that impact piece just keeps going from one to the other. And so this is why I love what I do. I get an opportunity to sit in rooms with people who go through journeys, and they're very hard journeys. And I've been through my own journey, so I can tell the stories of my journey, and I can see them transforming in front of my eyes. How they talk, what they see, how they deconstruct their lenses, all those things that they don't even realize they're doing. But later on, I will get messages from them about how they think of things a little bit differently now. And that really impacts me and who I am, and really motivates me to continue the work that I do, because it's not just about me, right? It's not about us. It's about the bigger picture. It's about who we impact. It's about what we leave behind, or what seeds we plant that we will never see grow to fruition, but they're growing. So
I love that. I love that joy keeps coming up in these conversations today, too. Judge Rein, what do you find joy in work? What do you love about what you do?
One of the things I love the most is just these types of opportunities, just the platform that this job has given to me. I have been to numerous elementary schools, talking to kids, and just seeing, you can tell when you make eye connection, you know that you have a little girl who's sitting in the audience who has lived what I've lived, or looks like me, and you make that connection, and I really enjoy that. I also, with being a judge, it's hard because you don't get any feedback unless it's negative. If it's something in the news, although my husband says, well, if people keep coming back, you must be doing good, but that's not. I think he didn't really get that right. But it's, I find joy in the opportunity to connect with people that are in my courtroom. I really value my courtroom, and I want to talk to them, and I can tell that a lot of times these people, nobody's looked at them like that. Nobody's had a dialogue like that with them, and it means so much once in a while when I get a letter, or I get a call from a parent or a grandparent, or even the person there, and they say, thank you. Nobody's ever said that to me. Nobody's ever understood that. And that means a lot to me, and that brings me joy. I have no idea. I'm not going to pretend that I'm making a difference in most of these people's lives, because that's just not realistic. But I know that I'm reaching somebody sometimes, and sometimes that's all that they need, is just to have that. And that brings me that's the best part, just making such an impact in people's lives.
Right. One final question for each of our panelists, and this might be the most important one. How do we make sure that you're not the last in this role? Who would like to go first?
I guess
guess I can go first. I would say that mentorship is a key to making sure that you're not the last. I think that finding people that you can have as your mentee that choose you is very important, whether that would be somebody that's in the same career as you, or maybe it's a young person, that's going down a different career path, but you connect with on some level. But making sure that door stays open, at least for me in the work that I do, means that I have a couple of women that we have a mentoring relationship with, and not just from Appleton PD, but from other agencies in the Fox Valley area where there isn't any female leadership. I've been able to make connections with. And quite honestly, that's due to the men in my life who facilitate those connections and who reach out and say, hey, can you connect up, with this officer or with this supervisor, because I don't have any other women leaders I can connect them with. And so for me, I think that's how you keep the door open for more people to be able to step through and step in. I try not to think about, what Judge Rein said as far as, there's people out there that want to see you fail. Whether or not you think a lot about that or not, I try not to fixate on that as much as just thinking about how I set up the next generation of women for success.
Dr. Herr, go ahead.
Well, for me, it was about empowerment, right? Empowerment was really, really important, continues to be important to me, because empowerment is not telling someone what to do, but to be able to walk through things with individuals, communities, and they get to make the decision on what is best for them. And so empowerment is what we give to others. And just because we're the first, we can't be the only. And that's really important. And sometimes when you are the first, you feel like the only, because you have no one else around you. But for me, it was always reaching out and empowering others and saying, this is not just my journey, this is our journey together. We have to be able to do this together. And in my role, in the 3 years that I committed, so I told them, 3 years, that I'm going to corporate. And they said, okay, we get you for 3 years. In those 3 years, I made it a priority for me to empower the communities of color, the leaders within those communities, to be able to be comfortable with their voices. First, to be able to find their voices, but then also to be comfortable in sharing their voices, right? Because when you've been voiceless your whole life, when you've never been given a voice, it's very scary. And I would walk into spaces with them, and they'd say, well, what are you going to say? I'm like, nothing. I'm just here to support. And they're like, what? Okay. Am I supposed to say something? Yes. Right? And so we develop these relationships about the fact that I'm not the one that's I'm not the hero. Okay? And I would tell them, you are that hero that you've been waiting for. It is not me. And it's you. And in that empowerment, we ensure that we are not the last, because that empowerment then empowers them to empower other people. And it becomes this domino effect, right? And so when I left the community, after 3 years to pursue my corporate career, I felt very comfortable that I empowered a lot of people to be able to share their voices, right? Maybe not be as comfortable as they wanted to, but they were on this track of being empowered and not being afraid to share that voice. So when I think about being the last, I don't think about last at all. I think about how we pass this on from one to the other, and there's never an ending to this journey. Thank you.
I would agree. I think just offering mentorship and doing things that make you uncomfortable, such as this, and speaking in front of groups of people, just so that basically giving to your community as much as you're taking from it. And people are going to see you, and in return, I think that they'll step up to it as well, and just empowering some people. I had somebody tell me, another attorney that is my mentor, because I think that you do need to have people in your life that are in your team. You need to have a mentor. And he said to me when I was approached to be a judge, and I had a lot of people reaching out, and He said, do you feel like everybody's trying to push you off the plank? And I said, oh my God, yes, I do. And he said, it's because we know you can swim. And that has just stuck with me. And I try to, that sigh everybody just said, that feel that I felt when those words were said, I try to say that to everybody. And every girl I meet, every man, just, you can do it. And I think that that's how we can assure that we're not the last. We're just not going to be, but we do need to be there for each other and empower each other and actually give back to the community.
Wow. Cups are filled. Thank you, ladies. My goodness. A huge thank you to Dr. Herr, to Chief Olson, and Judge Rein for joining us here today. I hope that all of you are inspired, maybe challenged, and again, hopefully your cup filled today. And this is just round one. We've got more to come upstairs. Julie, anything else before we part ways? Anything else, Julie? She's running around. She's a busy lady. My thanks to the Women's Fund, and my goodness, go on and enjoy the rest of your day and this luncheon. And thank you again, all of you, for being here today.